Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Score podcast. I'm your co-host Harry. Josh is on the other line. We're coming back from a really fun 4th of July weekend where we actually spent some time together, but we are going to get right into things. We have a lot to discuss in this world of sports. First thing we're going to have to get into will be the draft and how things have played out in this weird basketball draft that we've been watching. Josh, any takes on what we've seen happening so far?
Yeah, man. First off, it was nice to have you back in the city. We missed you over here. I know I got to go down there a couple weeks ago, but it was nice to see you. Going into the NBA draft, I mean, it was kind of what set the tone for the draft for me was that the Spurs, a team that is rebuilding, traded a top 10 pick for a pick in 7 years. What do you think of that, Harry? I think that was crazy.
Well, I think the first thing we have to say is this draft this year was one that I think everyone's going to probably end up forgetting about. These picks were from honestly from 1 through 60 were mostly a lot of players that people weren't following too well. The Spurs trading their pick away just shows that they know where they are as a team. They don't need someone in this draft, and that's why they traded out of the first round and they went back 7 years to another pick that might end up paying dividends. But right now, what they're looking to do is build around Victor Wembanyama, their first overall pick last season, who we knew last season that he was going first. It was guaranteed. This season, we had no idea who was going first in the draft, and the Spurs at 8, a top 10 pick, a lottery pick, going back for a team that's still building up. It shows that they know where they want to be. They signed Chris Paul to a 1 year deal, the perfect mentor, the perfect player to get the ball to Wemby in the paint, and I think we're going to see a lot of benefits from the Spurs knowing what they want to do for themselves. I think it's going to be a fun team to watch, but this draft was really just, I mean, terrible. Really, just overall terrible draft.
Yeah, I
There was a
mean,
couple of guys in this draft that were pretty solid. That we can go back and say maybe this one's going to be the best player, maybe this guy's going to be the best player. But I think overall, when you have 60 players that went in this draft, it might be in the last 20 years, probably the poorest draft we've seen in 2024.
but what comes with that comes that you could see that really any pick could be the gem of the draft. Like you could have someone who went in the 50s be the guy who was the crown jewel, like something like Jokic, who's in the 40s though, I believe. But for me, the one pick that I really liked was Tijan Salon. I'm not very good at speaking French, so apologies if I said that wrong. But he reminds me a lot of a better version of Obi Toppin. I feel like he does a lot of good things. He does a lot of good things, and he has a lot of potential to be a good shooter. Um, I want to know if you have any thoughts on the Hornets pick there, or if you have someone in mind that you think was your favorite pick.
Well, I think the Hornets are more than just one pick away from becoming a contender. I like Brandon Miller from last season,
Yeah,
but Salone, he's going to have to prove himself. Listen, we went to a draft 10 years ago, 11 years ago. We went to the 2013 draft, and there was a lot of no names then, too. Anthony Bennett went number one, and that was unexpected at that point. And then we
yeah,
fast forward 11 years later, and we see some stars that were in that draft that we didn't know at that time were stars. Giannis went
yeah,
15 that year. Look at Giannis now, right? NBA champion,
yeah,
MVP, all the good stuff, right? But if I had to pick
absolutely.
my guy who I think in this draft is probably going to end up being one of the better players, it's Matas Buzelis. He went number 11 to the Bulls, 6'10 forward. He can do a lot of things on both ends of the court. He's one of those European players from Lithuania who has a different upbringing when it comes to this sport, right? We see a lot of these European players. They have a different method on how they improve their games, get to the next level. And I think the Bulls did right by taking him at 11. I'm surprised, honestly, he didn't go in the top 10. But after they
Hmm.
lose DeMar DeRozan, another forward, I mean, DeRozan really plays like four different positions. But
Yeah,
Buzelis at 6'10, he'll give you he could play the three, he could play the four. If you're running a small lineup, he can go play the center. And I think he's going to be one of those guys that we'll see as soon as he gets onto the NBA court. He's going to start showing a lot of things, a lot of
yeah,
great things for Chicago basketball.
yeah. I agree with you. I think that he was one of the higher upside guys. But obviously him not being French, I feel like was held against him of the first 10 picks because for some reason it was all France. But they really kind of just seemed like everyone saw the French guys going, and everyone had these guys on their radar. Richer, Salon, Sar. So I feel like so all these guys, I feel like they're like, oh, like we got to make sure we get our French guy because they're not actually looking at it like because of Wemby, but I feel like they're really understanding that there's a lot of talent coming from there.
Well, Wemby wasn't, the first French player, right? I think he coming in at first overall and
Of
was
course.
getting those LeBron comparisons, right? Um, Showed the world that listen, France, they produce some really good ball players, right? I mean, we've seen guys in
Mm,
the past. Tony Parker, yeah, he's from Belgium technically, but he's a French national. He plays for the French team when he was playing. Quality player. These guys are high IQ, high quality players, and that's so important, right? You need people who are going to be able to facilitate, who are going to be able to play this game the
yeah.
right way to be able to get the job done. And the Spurs, when you have Greg Popovich as your head coach, the best head coach possibly ever to coach basketball, right? So
It's
there
fair.
there is a precedent when it comes to playing in San Antonio, and if you don't play that system the way it's supposed to be played, you're not going to be successful. And that's why these French players, the way that they're growing to play this game, it's showing, right? Victor in his first season was incredible. We already knew it, but I mean, he was better than what we expected him to be. Unanimous rookie of the year. There was nobody even close to him. Brandon Miller was a great player in Charlotte. But and guess what? Charlotte and San Antonio are two bottom tier teams. It's not like
I think also I think also in a lot of other years, Chet would have really been unanimous too, but that just shows how good Wemby was.
yeah, I mean, Chet is a great ball player, but Wemby, his size, his athleticism, his ability to score from in the paint, taking a few steps back, and now we're just getting all over the place talking about Wemby. And I want
Mm,
to focus on this draft, but it's great to see what Europe is able to bring to the NBA. Right? It's not only France. Like Matas is from Lithuania. We see a lot of great Lithuanian basketball players. Right? Starting back from one of my favorites of all times, Zydrunas Ilgauskas. So you see a lot of these European guys coming over to the NBA, and it seems like they are way more well equipped to get the job done than a lot of these collegiate players who,
yeah.
were in America their whole career. They grew up in this society, and now they're into the NBA, a little bit more immature, right? And we saw
Yeah.
that from Luca too, right? Luca came into the league, he was, almost averaging triple double his rookie season, right? It's like
Yeah.
27, 8 and 8. It's so these
Yeah.
European players. That's why now we're seeing in this draft we had a lot of guys from France, a lot of guys from Europe overall that are now taking over the league. This is what the presence of the NBA has done in the 21st century, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see. I know that this draft, as much as I could say it wasn't very good, people are going to still focus on these top 10 picks and how well they're
Of
going to
course.
do, and see where the rest of the draft will go, and follow these players. And we hope that all 60 of them have a great career, but we just know that that's just not how this works. And there's probably going to be 10% of the league that's going to really be great in terms of, I'm sorry, 10% of the draft that's really going to be great. That's average, right? And a draft like this, where not such a great draft, it's probably going to be less than 10%, but we'll never know until 10 years later, right? For instance, 2013. We won't know until 10 years from now and say, oh, these handful of guys are going to be surefire Hall of Famers.
Yeah, well, the main thing with the French guys, the European guys, they're all playing against grown men, so it's not a culture shock when they get to the NBA, and there are guys that are more physically built than them. There are guys that are more developed skills wise than them when they get there. Like when you're in college or even back when the guys will go right from high school, like you're the guy maybe in your conference, maybe in your state, maybe in the country, and then you go into the league and you could just be an average Joe your rookie year. And then if you can't handle that and then work to get back there, then then you might not have a good career. But that's what the fun of this is all about. That's why they do the draft, that because you really never know what you're gonna get until, well, Victor, you knew what you were getting, but you never really know in the middle of the first round on like what you're gonna get, how they're gonna respond to not being the best player on their team.
Teams are going to do their due diligence, right? They're going to scout as well as they can. They're going to interview these players, and they know better than we do on what kind of players they're bringing into their teams, right? In any sport, not just basketball. But Kevin Durant, right? And I want to just say he's probably one of my least favorite players in the NBA. I just don't
Yeah,
like
you
his
don't gotta
character.
tell me, bro. You don't
I
gotta
know,
tell me.
I know. But I do want to point out one thing he did say that does stand, and it's going to refer back to here is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard enough, right? And that goes
Yeah.
back to these European physical
There's
men
no
who are
way
playing the game
there's no
versus
way he was the first person to say that. There's no way
he's
he
the
was the
first person
first
that I
person.
heard say that, so I'm going to give him the credit right now until I get fact checked. But at least for right now, we're going to say that Kevin Durant did say this. But going back to it, right? The hard work is the European guys who are putting in this effort. They're physical, they're strong, versus these American players who are talented. They were born with it, and they kind of take it for granted, and that's where it shows, right? The immaturity level between the American players and the European players. So we're going to see. I mean, it's going to be interesting. You know, a lot of different personalities are now in the NBA, and it's going to be fun to see. I mean, the Hawks probably believe they have the best player. They got, you know, a #1 pick, but we'll see how they actually end up playing out. They trade away Murray, and it's going to be an interesting 2024-25 season for basketball.
It definitely will be, and I think that you talking about the maturity of some of these guys is a perfect way to transition into. Of course, when you talk about the draft, you got to talk about Bronny James. And Ben, if you could pull up that tweet from his dad.
Of course, I actually just was fact checking for you on who said that quote, and it was a high school basketball coach, Tim Notoki.
Nobody knows who that is, so Kevin Durant said it.
Tim Notoki. Yeah.
No, that's the exact opposite. This is his 5 minutes of fame.
All right,
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. What's his name again?
Tim Notoki. N-O-T.
Timothy, congratulations. You said a fantastic quote. We'll give you the credit. I was proven wrong. It's going to happen. But, you know, Kevin Durant was the one who said it, and your 5 minutes of fame, Tim, here it is. Enjoy.
I'm not denying that he ever said it. I'm denying that he was the first person to say it.
Fair enough. We got it over with. It is what it is. Kevin Durant, you still stink. I'm sorry. Don't like you. You're a good basketball player, but, you know, probably should have stayed with the Thunder.
I have that quote for you guys. I'll pull it up right now.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bronnie James, huh? This guy, and I'm excited to talk about him a lot too.
LeBron James said, with the 55th pick in the 2024 NBA draft, the Los Angeles Lakers select Bronnie James.
I think LeBron is trying to take over the commissioner's job with this type of thing, right? He probably thinks he could do anything in the NBA, and he probably
could.
Right. You know, Bronny, first thing I want to say is, personally, and this is just my opinion, I don't like calling him Bronnie James, right? If I'm Bronnie James, my name is LeBron James Jr., right? Bronny seems so inferior, right? Like, oh, here's LeBron James, and here's his son, Bronny. Oh, you're LeBron James Jr., right? Bronny just seems so inferior. I don't know why he wants to stick with that. If that's just to make him seem different, I think the junior. Listen, I'm a junior. I'm Harry Jr. I think it's great to represent your full name, and I think that will. I mean, really, realistically, it's not going to matter a lot what you're going to go by. But I think Bronny just seems so inferior.
Maybe they knew they were going to play together, so they couldn't have people calling LeBron when they're both on the court. So he's just Bronny.
What's wrong with Junior?
I don't know.
Hey, Junior!
Junior on the team.
Hey, Junior! Hey, Junior! Hey, get over here right now. This is going to be LeBron telling his son, like, you better get your butt over here, or I'm going to use Thor's hammer.
Hold up. So you're telling me that Bronny is inferior to having grown men calling you Junior?
Maybe. Good question. Something we'll find out, I guess. I mean, he is a junior. You know?
Yes, he is a junior, and
he is what he is.
I'm a big fan of the kid. I think that he can ball. I think that you don't often enter the draft your first year when you have the cardiac arrest or some sort of big health scare when you're a project, when you're a guy like that. But I mean, it's pretty clear that it fell right into the Lakers' lap. I mean, there were things that the agent was saying, don't do it because he's not going to sign unless you do this, that, the other thing. I don't really care about all that meddling stuff. I think that it's really cool to have dad and son together. And I think that Bronny is a legitimate NBA prospect. He's not a legitimate NBA player today, but to be a project and be able to have the #1 person who cares about your development the most in the world on your team with the same goal, I think that's pretty dope.
Listen, I don't think it's an argument that it's going to be really fun to see father and son play together, right? But if you ask me, if LeBron James is not a thing and there's just this guy named Bronny James or LeBron James, this version of LeBron James, his son, I don't think he goes 55. I mean, you had 4 more picks after that, right? I think the only reason he got picked in 2024 at 55 was because LeBron James wants to play with his son, and they had an opportunity to get that done in a season where LeBron's a free agent, right? He opts out. Most likely going to re-sign regardless, but he makes a lot of influence, right? LeBron kind of dictates what he wants.
Question mark. Tampering.
Is it really tampering though when you're already involved in the organization and you're already part of, the coveted top 2 basketball players to ever play the game, so to speak, and you want to play with your son, right?
But by definition, the man was a free agent dictating where a player played.
Well,
like of course you look at it like
we'll never know the absolute truth. The Lakers are never going to come out and say, well, we did this because we wanted to make sure LeBron was going to come back. If we didn't draft Bronny, then LeBron's going to leave. That was never going to happen. I think if Bronny did hypothetically get drafted by another team, LeBron would have probably still stayed with the Lakers. I just find it hard to believe that if hypothetically he got drafted by the Charlotte Hornets, let's just say, right? Is LeBron going to leave the Lakers to go to the Charlotte Hornets? Absolutely not, right? That would not make any sense. Now, at 55, where the Lakers can say, we'll take a chance and we'll draft him and we'll see if we could grow. Listen, I think the raw skill is there, but when you're 6'2" and you don't really have that position in this NBA, it's a physical game, right? It's a big difference between college and here. And he played, in the US. He played for USC in the Pac-12 over there, and it wasn't the same competition that you get in the rest of collegiate basketball. He averaged 4 points per game, shot under 37% from the field. These aren't like great numbers, so it's not the numbers that really got the Lakers to say, oh, we're going to draft him, or really any team to give him consideration to draft him. I think it was the fact that it's LeBron. He wants to play with his son, and this was probably his only real opportunity to get that done. And we'll see. I mean, he got a 4-year guaranteed deal at $7.9 million. Nobody at 55 overall or anyone in the second round gets that. It's crazy, Guaranteed. They showed. I don't even remember who got drafted 55 last season. They showed his contract. It was a 2-way, $560,000 guaranteed deal. At 55 overall, like, these guys aren't supposed to get paid, right?
Yeah.
So to speak, right?
No,
listen, $560,000 over 2 years. I wish I could make that. But the truth is $7.9 million is you could spend that on players that need you could use today in the NBA, right?
But if you're gonna talk about the numbers like that, you could look at guys that were drafted in the lottery. Like, what were the numbers of like Noah Vonleh, of like Bruno Caboclo, of like guys like that like they got drafted higher, and I don't think their numbers would have put them there, but it's a project. It's something that the team wants to plant the seed and watch it grow over time. They give him 4 years because they know it's going to take time for him to develop. Yeah, maybe the money was a little more, but LeBron took a couple million less so it could go to his son, whatever. The money
father's paying the son, essentially.
But
what's changed in his 20 years of being on this planet for Bronnie James?
What do you mean?
What's changed? Everything everything has been taken care of by LeBron, his father, financially speaking, right? But another thing that we do have to at least address when it comes to Bronny and this financial situation is the Lakers know that they're going to be able to also capitalize from this as well. So $7.9 million, it seems like a lot of money, but they're probably going to sell a ton of jerseys for Bronny. Right? And they're going to have people coming into the stands to watch him play. He's going to be playing in the G League for some time to really get his game developed. They're going to sell those tickets too. So they are going to make the money. I don't think it's a lost salary, so to speak, but in terms of salary cap, it affects you, right? Not towards the bigger picture of the financials of the Los Angeles Lakers. So, it's not like $7.9 million went out the door. Obviously, LeBron took a little bit less money, and they're going to make all that in jersey sales and games that he's going to be playing with. When LeBron and Bronny, when he gets called to the, into the, NBA, that first game that they played together, I don't even want to know how much those tickets are going to go for.
So loud. And also they're gonna do it in a weekday game against the Hornets or against a team that's in last place, and they'll do it for that, and there'll be a bobblehead and it'll be a whole thing. But it'll be treated like nothing's going on the court, I feel like. But everything else around, they'll sell shirts, they'll have cool marketing phrases, and I'm excited for it. I'm here for it.
I'm excited too. I can't wait for the NBA season to start. I know it just finished. We got a long off season to go, some more free agency stuff, and we'll keep you guys posted with that as well. More free agents that end up getting signed or traded. We'll love to end up discussing those. But basketball, we're going to see what happens October when the season starts. Who's going to be on what team, where Bronny will be at that point. It's going to be a lot of fun to go back and forth on. I'm excited to get into that as well. We got a lot of fun baseball stuff to talk about as well. The All-Star game is going to be approaching really soon. We got 32 new All-Star players this season, first-time All-Star players. It's going to be a lot of fun to see these young guys in there now. Josh, what are your thoughts about what we expect to see in the middle of July?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's just in a couple of days now at this point, or in a week. I feel like it's something that's so cool to have all these guys. I mean, I think that a lot of people work their whole lives for this, and some of the older guys might not appreciate it as much. Where like I know guys like Rafael Devers, his shoulder was nagging, so good on him, I guess, for not risking it because he believes in what his team could do. But at the same time, like that opens the door for another guy to get his first. So it might that number might like that number is definitely strong, but it could be built on stuff like that too.
And that guy
Uh,
officially is now Jordan Westbrook of the Baltimore Orioles. He is taking over Devers' spot, which it's funny enough because I wanted to mention how he was a snub for this All Star appearance. I think he's playing fantastic baseball. I think the Orioles have so many good players that when you look at their roster, you could pick 4 or 5 All Stars on there, and Jordan Westbrook is probably fourth or fifth, but he deserves it very much. I mean, his OPS is in the 840s. He's playing some great baseball for the Orioles, and I think the fact that he had to be replaced, Devers going down, that's his way to getting into the All-Star.
yeah.
It's, listen, it's a process, well deserved for sure. I'm so glad to see him in there. He definitely deserves it. I had huge praise for him really when I first saw the Orioles on the field this season. He's a great player. He deserves this, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do for the All-Star appearance. Go American League.
Yeah, go American League. And I know you said that the Orioles have a couple good players. So Ben, can you pull up the graphic of how many players came from some of the best teams in the league right now that have the most all-stars? I wanted to pull that up real quick. So you see that the Phillies are leading the way with 7. And Harry, what are your thoughts on this list?
Uh, is it really that surprising? I don't think so. I mean, the Phillies are one of the best teams in baseball. They have a ton of great players. Bryce Hart. I can name you 10 players easily, and 3 of those will be left off that list that probably could have been on there compared to some of these other guys. But you got to get at least one player from every team on the All Star team. Phillies 1, Dodgers 2. Not really much of a surprise there. The one thing that kind of stinks is that the Yankees are not on that list. But the way that they've been playing the last 3 weeks, I think there's only really 2 guys that are worthy of being an all-star. Clay Holmes is actually an all-star too, so I think they have 3 all-stars on there, but
They do have 3,
they
yeah.
have 3, right? So, I mean, looking at this list, you see teams on here that you probably weren't going to expect to have so many, like the Cubs at 5, like the Royals at 4, having, a decent amount of all-stars on there. The Padres have a stacked team, and they just need to play better ball together, but 5 all-stars there too. It's quite impressive to see these teams stacking up so many all-stars.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at the Phillies at 7. I actually think that Hunter Green making it over Christopher Sanchez is something that I don't agree with. I think that Christopher Sanchez is like the best pitcher uh that is not on the list, and his WAR competes with the best in the league. I mean, I know you don't necessarily get into those stats all the time when you go with this because it's about popularity, it's about selling a brand. Hunter Green throws 100 miles an hour, fine, but I just felt like I had to give Christopher Sanchez his flowers. He's on both of my fantasy teams, so shout out to you, Christopher Sanchez.
You're welcome for me trading him to you, by the way. I did trade you Christopher Sanchez, but I mean, I do have to agree with that too. I mean, just Hunter Green's a good pitcher. Don't get me wrong. I'm a huge advocate on the Cincinnati Reds, but his home ERA is a 4.19. That's not very good for Mr. Hunter Green over there. Unfortunately, when it comes to picking these all stars, they're not always accurate. We can go back the last 10 years and probably say there was a few snubs in every single year, and this is just another example of what we're dealing with, right? Where they probably don't get it right, but another injury happens, and potentially Christopher Sanchez gets in there. He would make the Phillies their 8th all star, though. I think they're probably
It's
looking at that
crazy.
like. We probably have to settle down. 7's a lot, right? And they probably are looking at it like if they had 8 all stars for just one team, they'd probably think it's not going to pan out well among the fans, seeing that one team has so many. I think 7 is a lot too. 8 is just over the top.
But if you have all the best players, you deserve recognition for that. It's pretty cool. I mean, I agree that it's a lot, but a lot of them are pitchers who won't even see the mound. So it's kind of yes, the number's big, but I think that looking at that, Christopher Sanchez, I'm rooting for you, bud. I'm advocating.
Well, we still have some time to pick any, last second additions based on injuries and things like that. So we'll see if he does get that or not. I don't think he will. I think as long as Hunter Green stays healthy, he'll obviously have his spot in the All-Star game. And we'll see. What do we have? Like another week until All-Star game?
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's going to be a lot of fun to see. I mean, on our next episode, we'll definitely have a nice recap for you guys to hear our thoughts on how that game went among the American League and the National League. What I miss the most about the All-Star game, though, is the competition level, right? The fact that, a few years ago, the All-Star game was the defining moment on who would host the World Series, American League or National League. They take that out, and now the competition goes out the window, and it's kind of like, it's not really as fun to watch because
and now half the guys don't even play either.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. They don't want to get hurt. That's a big problem in 2024 is injuries nowadays. Everyone's getting hurt. So if you don't have to play them, they're not going to play. But at the same time, it's still going to be fun to watch. We're going to see who's going to be winning these games, the home run derby. Another thing that I think is so ridiculous, Mr. Pete Alonso on the Mets saying that he won't play in the All-Star game if he's not. I'm sorry, he won't play in the home run derby if he's not in the All-Star game. And guess what happens? He gets a All-Star game nod, and he definitely does not deserve it over someone like Christian Walker in Arizona, who's playing much better than he is. In almost
every category,
in almost every statistical category, Christian Walker's leading Pete Alonso. But Pete Alonso has been in 2 home run derbies, winning 2 home run derbies. People want to see him there. So what is the MLB going to do? All right, he's got a 745 OPS. He hit 18 home runs, but he's batting under 240. We'll stick him into the All-Star game. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. When you see Christian Walker, Arizona Diamondbacks, listen, I understand they're not as good as they were last season, but they were the NL pennant winners, right? I think they
some respect on their name.
You have to give them a fair representation to the All-Star game, and Christian Walker is one of their best hitters, and he's definitely better than Pete Alonso. So it really doesn't make sense that these things are being maneuvered around to please fans and players
and markets
exactly, versus the player who's played hard all first half of the season, and doesn't get that nod because, well, Pete Alonso's in a bigger market and he's won 2 home run derbies and he should be in there. It's not what we want to see as fans, right? We want to see the more talented players in there, to see the competition in there, right? Pete Alonso, realistically, he's going to get 2 at-bats and he's probably going to strike out and pop up. That's probably what's going to happen. Christian Walker, he's fun to watch. He's a talented player on offense and defense. Pete Alonso is a subpar first baseman defensively.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at it, for those of us who may not be as stat savvy, you generally look to be around 800 to be a good hitter. Pete Alonso, what you said, 746? Is that what you said?
Yeah, he's at 745, and Christian Walker, I'm almost confident he's about 830 to 840 range. So about 100 points higher on the OPS is a big difference. It's not like Pete Alonso's at 785 and Christian Walker's at 810, and you're like, all right, that's close enough. How are the other numbers looking? No. In almost every statistical category, Christian Walker is leading. The only 3 categories, and I don't have it in front of me, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct when I say the only 3 categories that Pete Alonso leads over Christian Walker currently is he has less strikeouts, he has 1 more walk, and I think he has like 2 more doubles than him, right? But hits, runs, batting average, OPS plus, all the important stats goes right to Christian Walker, offense and defense. Hands down, better player. There's no question about it.
And I think if you're trying to reward the Mets for how well they've been playing, you slide a rise to that first base and you give Lindor the spot. Lindor has been scoring a lot of runs. He hits doubles. He steals bases. He plays a great shortstop. Like, it's just Pete Alonso. I feel like they're pushing this power, but Walker has more homers, better power numbers. It doesn't make sense to me.
And on top of the fact that there's a lot of talk about Pete Alonso possibly getting moved, right? Imagine showing up to All-Star Week and wearing the National League, and somehow now he's on the American League team, right? Like, when you have that type of news around you, I feel like, listen, unless you're extremely talented, you're playing and you deserve it, you're an all-star, right? Even if you're in trade talks, right? But when you're having a season like you are here for the Mets, as Pete Alonso is, and you're in the mix of potentially being moved, you don't deserve an all-star appearance. The Mets don't even, in a perfect world, the Mets move you, then you shouldn't be an all-star because you're clearly not good enough to stay on that team.
Yeah, I mean, what's it called? The Mets were playing way worse before, definitely. I think that now they're kind of in a really tough spot with him. We could get into deadline stuff next week or the week after, but I think that with that, it's if you're trying to push the Mets, you do Lindor. If you're trying to get the best power first baseman available, you get Walker. Alonso just doesn't make sense to me because even if you're pushing that home run derby, like that's his choice to not be in it. We have plenty of power hitters, plenty of people trying to make a name for themselves.
And Pete Alonso, listen, no, I don't want to discredit him. He's a great guy. He's honestly fits the Mets ambiance perfectly. And any time, the 2 times that he won the Derby, he donated all the money to charity, which is a really nice thing to do, especially when in those times he was still under league minimum pre-arbitration, making under 600K a year, getting a $500,000 check for winning a home run derby. I think it's 500,000. Is that correct, or is that 50,000? Whatever it is, he's donating the whole thing. That's a lot of money, right? For someone who's not making multi-millions of dollars in the MLB just yet. Sure, 600K is a great salary, but taxes and fees and everything like that, and to give off $500,000 is a great thing. But I think all those things considered, it doesn't matter when the players who are playing this game in today's MLB, the ones who deserve it should be in the All-Star game, and that's without question.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, it's definitely not on a personal level. Like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with Pete Alonso, the person. It's just putting baseball numbers of Christian Walker versus Pete Alonso. It's not saying he's a bad dude. It's nothing like that.
Right, and it's not like the Mets are in a position where they're a much better team than the Diamondbacks are, at least considering the fact that the Diamondbacks were, the pennant winners last season. I would think that they would give them a little bit more credit in terms of picking some of these All-Stars, but that's just not the way it goes. We learn a lot every day in sports, how, things are maneuvered through front office, the MLB, the commissioner's office, all that stuff. We learn a lot, right? And that's what we love to do, right? Talk about what we're learning on a day-to-day basis. And these are some of the things that we're seeing, right? Last season, if this was something that happened, we would have known it last season. Now, this season, we're seeing it with Christian Walker. And this is just an example between Christian Walker and Pete Alonso. We could pull up a couple other examples of things like this happening. But this is just the way baseball works. It's not perfect. Sports in general, it's not perfect, but we learn from it, and hopefully the MLB picks up on this and says, well, we should start picking the players who really do deserve to be in the All-Star game.
Do you think every team should have a representative?
I 100% agree that every team should have a representative. I understand that sometimes, like for instance, the Chicago White Sox this season, one of the worst teams in baseball, you could find a player in there and say, listen, this person deserves to be an All-Star because even in all this bad, they are still producing good, right?
Yeah.
So you can get into the whether or not any team should have one or not. I think one representative is more than fair for every team. You have 30 teams in baseball. You have, 26 on the American League, 26 on the National League. So it's 52 players in total. I don't see why not that get 30 players from every team, and then the 22 players that you have remaining, you start pulling the best available at that point.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Garrett Crochet, the White Sox representative. He's well deserved it, but he's one of those guys where it's the opposite situation where I know you said before that getting traded. Like, I think he played his way off of that team to go try and win a championship somewhere. I don't think he played his way because he's not good enough to be on that team. I think it's the reverse.
Oh, I agree. I mean, it's just two completely different teams, Chicago White Sox and the New York Mets, right? The Mets seem like they're in just this constant dilemma and like an identity crisis, right? They have no idea where they stand. They could win, 10 out of 12 games and then drop, 5 out of 6. And it just doesn't make sense for them to figure out these details that they have among these current players. The White Sox are not a good team. They know they're not a good team, right? They have a really good player and a really good pitcher in Crochet, who if they move him, they know that they could build for their future. They have nothing to play for this season. The Mets are like that team that they don't know what they want to do. Are they going to continue to try to make a push for the playoffs, or are they going to sell off their assets and build for the future? And it seems like in the Steve Cohen era, it's not really been build for the future. It's been buy now and hope for the best. But that's why they have a lot of dead money on their payroll that they're paying for players that aren't on their team. And it's a tougher situation to be able to manage in New York with the Mets versus the White Sox, considering how bad the White Sox are. So we shall see. It's going to be a fun couple of weeks. The deadline will be approaching, All-Star game, all that stuff. So we're going to bring you a lot of fun baseball stuff as it comes. Now that this is really the only sport among the 4 major that are currently in season, we're going to give you a lot of baseball. But as we wrap up baseball, we have some really big soccer stuff. We have Copa, we have the Euro Cup, a lot of big soccer things happening. We're actually getting really close to the end for both of these tournaments. Josh, what do you think about where we're at in terms of the Euro and in terms of the Copa America Cups?
Oh, this has been so much fun, man. Looking at these teams, looking at everyone looking to do this for their country, man. I feel like it kind of makes me feel like over here, like we got to get better at soccer over here on this side of the pond because these guys would wipe the floor with us. And frankly, the team one of the teams that's playing later tonight is wipe the floor with us. So, and they're not even across the pond; they're just down south. But I think it's a lot of fun. I think that there was a really sick goal by Lamine Yamal, 16-year-old, the youngest scorer in Euro history. Harry, I want you to see this goal. I'm not sure if you saw it.
I actually didn't.
16 years old, bro.
Oh,
that's not a tap in. That's not someone seeing the 16-year-old running and giving him his first goal. That's earned. And that, I know how you feel about France, bro. That's against France. And they're down. That takes some balls.
Yeah, I did see the scorecard. I saw that France scored in the 9th minute, and then Spain came back and scored in the 21st and the 25th minute. This is obviously their 21st minute goal here. I'm shocked, right? I thought France was the best team in Euro. They have the best player today, right now. I'm not saying historically, but Kylian Mbappe is a stud, right? And they beat Argentina. I'm sorry, that's Copa, but they beat Spain, and a really good team right there as well. And they're heading to the finals now. They're going to play either the Netherlands or England, another really good team. But it seems like Spain in itself is just overall, from top to bottom, quality team, right? Mm-hmm. They showed it here. They kept their composure. They did not let France score in the second half of that game, and it was just such an incredible match. Just seeing that goal right there, 16 years old. He's not even 17, turning 17 in what, 3 days, 4 days?
Yeah.
Wow.
What's the date? What's the date of Sunday?
Good question.
Date of Sunday.
The date of Sunday is the 14th.
Okay. Well,
so he's 17 on Saturday. So he will be 17 for the final.
Happy early birthday, Mr. Yamal. Congratulations. That was a great goal. Your team is going to the finals now. Good luck on whether you're playing England or the Netherlands. It's going to be really fun to watch.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about that just as you were on your way to the studio, England defeated the Netherlands in stoppage time. The coach Southgate finally decided to use his young weapons for a change, because a lot of these guys have been reeling to go, ready to play. And he brought on Cole Palmer, Ollie Watkins. And sure enough, in the interview after the game, Ollie Watkins said, I told Cole, we're going to win this game. You're going to pass it to me. Sure enough, stoppage time starts, 90+1. Cole Palmer comes down, drops it off to Ollie in the box, turns around, wins the game. It was really cool. I think that Spain is going to be a huge problem for them. I think Spain is the perfect combination of discipline, youth, energy, tacticians. I think that they play the game the right way, and I think that it's going to be a very fun game and a very fun Sunday, because the Copa final is that day as well. That should be a holiday. If they have those finals the same day every time, that should be a holiday.
Are they actually going to be on the same day? Is that confirmed?
Yep, 1 p.m. and 7 p.m.
Wow, that's going to be a lot of fun. So Sunday is going to be a full soccer day, or football, however you like to say it. But that's a lot of fun. I mean, England is a great team versus Spain. Wow, what a matchup. Yeah. I can't wait to watch that game either. And then obviously on the other side with Copa America, we're going to have Argentina versus, we don't even know who they're going to be playing. It's either going to be Uruguay or Colombia. I know Ben is a huge Colombia fan.
It's going to be Colombia.
Yeah, well,
it's going to be Colombia.
For Ben's sake, we're going to be rooting for Colombia. That's for sure.
I'm with Ben. Viva Colombia.
Listen. When I was young, my nanny, when I was 2 years old, was from Colombia, so I have a lot of heart for Colombia. So go Colombia, and also Uruguay. Since you guys beat USA, go kick rocks. Good luck in the next couple of years in your other tournaments, but we don't want to see you win over here. A really, really cool thing that Josh, you shared with me about Colombia, and incredible. Actually, Josh, you want to share with us that really cool stat about Colombia soccer?
Yeah, man, it's of course. Colombia has not taken an L in 27 straight international games. That means they won or they had a draw in 27 straight games. And I think that for this game against Uruguay, I think that they had a huge opportunity to show that they have scoring prowess, but instead they just tried to bully ball Brazil, who didn't have Vinicius Jr. I'm terrible at saying his name, but Vinny. But I think that Colombia is the team to beat. And I think that the team to take down the team that won the World Cup should be a team that hasn't lost in all this time. That's a true heavyweight battle, and that's one that you have to watch.
Well, they're going to have their hands tied up, regardless whoever it is, because the winner of the other game between Argentina and Canada, which Argentina was the winner, 2-0, they defeated Canada, which honestly, very surprised to see Canada make it that far. Good for them, above us in the north. But Lionel Messi is not going to be a fun player to go up against, regardless of who you are. It doesn't matter what country you are. If you're in Copa America or you're in the rest of the world, when Messi's on the field, that's going to be a lot of trouble. But it's going to be a fun game. I mean, two South American teams, regardless of who wins this game between Uruguay and Colombia, it's going to be a lot of fun. There's going to be probably a lot of chatter in South America about who's going to be the best once we see a winner over here. I think if Colombia beats Argentina, oh my goodness gracious, that's going to be a big talk, big underdogs coming in and winning. But if Messi wins and Argentina wins and Messi adds another trophy to his stack, I don't think there's any conversation about who the GOAT of all time is in soccer. That's going to be Messi over Ronaldo. I think it's Messi right now over Ronaldo winning the World Cup. That, in my opinion, put him above the list. But now he's here. Portugal lost to France in penalties. So I don't see really any argument about who the best player is in football history. I'm not saying right now, in my opinion, right now, that's Kylian Mbappe. But this is going to be a lot of fun to see, and I'm excited to watch. I'm excited for Sunday, and I'm excited for Wednesday to share with you guys all the recaps of those two big games for Copa as well as the Euro Cup. It's going to be a lot of fun stuff. And soccer, you guys are really, really coming in with me, and now I'm starting to really feel it. I think this was the perfect timing. Two big games coming up, and I do like soccer. I don't love it, but I think we're heading in a direction where I'm going to love it, and we're going to be able to talk about it a lot more. So I'm excited to see what is going to happen this weekend in soccer, and obviously later on today between Uruguay and Colombia. Go Colombia. And soccer, you guys are killers, let me tell you. Great sport, love it. It's something that I think America, if they were better at, I'd be a little bit more enthusiastic about it, because I do have a lot of national pride. I always want to root for USA, but unfortunately, we are not good at soccer. So we're good at everything else, basically, just not soccer.
Not like that. But I agree with you. I think that Canada didn't have an easy path, but I do think that playing against like Chile, playing against Venezuela, playing against some of these teams that they had before they had Argentina, I think that they were just looking at it as this is an opportunity to really do something to put our country on the map. And I think that they should be very proud of themselves and going against the team that won the World Cup. And 2-0 is not an embarrassing loss. Like, yeah, you got beat, but that doesn't mean that you should feel bad about yourself. I mean, it would have been nice to score one, but soccer sometimes doesn't work like that. Uruguay and Brazil was 0-0. They didn't score a goal until penalties. So you could feel about that.
And that's what makes soccer so interesting, right? You could have a whole game that goes 0-0 and then wait till the penalties and see who ends up winning it that way. But we will have another game, I'm guessing Saturday, right, between the third place teams. Canada will play the loser of Colombia and Uruguay. So if Canada gets third place, I mean, fourth place is still pretty impressive for Canada, but if they can get like a bronze for third place, I mean, great for them. They're clearly way better than the United States at soccer for players that, are extremely similar in a lot of ways. So, it's going to be fun. So I'm guessing Saturday will be the third place match. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I think that I'm with Ben that they'll be playing Uruguay. We're going Colombia.
Yeah, Uruguay, it seems like it's going to be for at least the three of us.
Viva Colombia!
Listen, I'm about to, what is it? It's yellow, blue, and red, their colors. I might have to.
Yes,
I might have to be wearing yellow, blue, and red when I get out of here and just show my support for Colombia.
Soon we're gonna have to start putting the shows on in here, and we'll have everybody, the audience, come in and watch the shows after, or something like that.
Not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea at all. So, with that being said, I am so happy to be able to do this every single time with you, Josh. I love it. I wanted to just remind everyone who is watching. We are on Spotify, we are on Apple TV, we are on YouTube. If you guys go on there and you can subscribe to us, comment, whatever you guys think, if you're like, these guys are crazy with their thoughts, put it out there for us to be able to read. We're going to read everything, and I can't reiterate that more enough. We love what we do. We love just going back and forth about sports. And so we're really excited to share with you guys all our thoughts, all that we see in this world. And like I said, if you guys can go back on there and give us all those feedback, we'd be really appreciative of that.
Oh, for sure. And we're starting up an Instagram page as well. We're trying to really be able to connect on on like a personal level where you can really know us. Like we're totally open to the conversation. We're trying to build something here, but we can't do it without you guys. And we appreciate the time that you take listening once again today. And for the first timers, welcome. We hope to have you back next time.
Thank you guys so much. And we can never let you go without a nice yogiism. That's how we're going to send you off. And the one for today is perhaps his most famous of all. It ain't over till it's over. Nothing is ever over. Go Colombia. Good luck on today and Sunday.
Viva Colombia!